On my 50th birthday, my sons unveiled a video of my failures, narrated by my ex. She failed as a wife, mother, and woman. They announced new last names. Guests laughed as I sat stunned. I thanked them and left. This morning, my phone buzzed with their pleas. Talk to us. But I'd vanished. Their betrayal freed me. My revenge is my silence. They can't break me, so picture this. I'm sitting in my backyard 3 weeks ago, drinking my morning coffee from this chipped Starbucks mug I've had forever, watching the sprinklers hit my sad little flower garden. 50 years on this planet, and I'm thinking maybe it's time to celebrate hitting the big 5-0 with something special. My 2 boys, Jake and Marcus, they're 26 and 24 now, living their own lives but still my babies, you know? They'd been acting all mysterious for weeks, whispering and hanging up phone calls when I walked into rooms. Classic stuff. Mom, we're planning something epic for your birthday, Jake told me over dinner at Applebee's the week before. Like, seriously epic. You're gonna lose it. Marcus nodded along, grinning like he'd just won the lottery. We've been working on this surprise for months. Dad even helped us out. That should have been my first red flag right there. My ex-husband helping with anything involving me. The same guy who told the divorce mediator I was emotionally unstable and financially irresponsible. But I was feeling all warm and fuzzy about my sons taking initiative, so I just smiled and ordered another Diet Coke. The party was set for Saturday night at the community center downtown. You know, the one with the beige walls and fluorescent lighting that makes everyone look like they're dying. They'd invited about 40 people. My sisters, a few neighbors, some old coworkers from the insurance office, even my book club ladies. I spent 2 hours getting ready, trying on 3 different outfits before settling on this navy blue dress from Target that made me feel halfway decent. Walking into that community center, seeing all those familiar faces holding solo cups and paper plates loaded with grocery store sheet cake, I felt genuinely happy for the first time in months. These were my people celebrating me hitting the half-century mark. The decorations were basic but sweet, those metallic 50 balloons from Party City and some streamers that probably cost $3 total. Update. The night started perfectly normal, just like any other family gathering. Everyone was chatting, laughing, sharing those embarrassing stories about me from back in the day. But then my sons asked everyone to gather around for their special presentation. I should have trusted my gut when I saw that smug look on their faces. What kind of surprise makes a mother's stomach drop before it even starts? Jake grabbed this wireless microphone they'd rented and started talking like he was hosting some game show. Ladies and gentlemen, for Mom's 50th birthday, we wanted to give her something truly memorable. A trip down memory lane, if you will. They'd set up this projector screen, and Marcus was fiddling with his laptop, getting everything connected. The room went quiet except for the hum of that ancient air conditioning unit and someone's phone buzzing with notifications. We spent months putting this together, Marcus announced, his voice echoing through those cheap speakers. Collecting photos, videos, interviews with people who know Mom best. The screen flickered to life, and there was my face from maybe 15 years ago, smiling at some family barbecue. Normal stuff. Then came baby pictures of the boys, their first steps, Christmas mornings. Everyone was going, "Aw," and "how sweet," like you'd expect. But then the tone shifted. The music changed from that generic happy birthday instrumental to something darker. Photos started flashing by faster, me looking exhausted at Jake's high school graduation, arguing with their father at Marcus's college orientation, sitting alone at various family events while everyone else seemed to be having fun. That's when I heard his voice, my ex-husband's voice, clear as day through those speakers, like he was standing right behind me. Let's be honest about who she really is. My stomach dropped to my Skechers. The room got so quiet you could hear Mrs. Henderson from down the street breathing through her nose. She failed as a wife. His voice continued over a montage of photos from our marriage, me looking frazzled at family dinners, clearly arguing, with him in the background of birthday parties, sitting by myself while he talked to other people at social events. Couldn't keep a household running, couldn't manage money, couldn't even keep herself together enough to be supportive when I needed her. I felt like I was watching this happen to someone else. Like I was floating above the room, watching this woman in a navy Target dress get absolutely destroyed in front of 40 people who were supposed to care about her. She failed as a mother too, the voice went on. Photos of me missing school events because I was working late shifts to pay bills after the divorce. Pictures where I looked tired, stressed, overwhelmed. Always too busy with her own problems to really be there for Jake and Marcus. They basically raised themselves. The worst part wasn't even the photos or his words. It was the sound. You could hear people shifting in their plastic chairs, clearing their throats, that uncomfortable silence when nobody knows what to say or where to look. Update. I sat there frozen while my ex-husband's voice tore apart 26 years of my life in front of everyone I cared about. The photos kept coming. Every exhausted moment, every time I'd struggled, every imperfect second they could find. But what happened next made everything else seem like child's play. When they announced their grand finale, I knew this wasn't just embarrassment anymore. This was complete betrayal. And finally, that voice said, she failed as a woman. Look at her now, 50 years old, living alone in that rental house, working at the same dead-end job she had 20 years ago. This is what giving up looks like. The screen showed recent photos of me, grocery shopping in sweatpants, watering my pathetic garden, sitting alone on my front porch with my coffee. Photos that could only have been taken by someone watching me, following me around like some kind of stalker. Then Jake stepped forward with that microphone again, and his voice was different now, colder, more confident. Mom, we love you, but We think it's time for some honesty. We've been talking to Dad a lot lately, and we realize how much of our childhood was affected by your choices. Marcus nodded, pulling out this official-looking folder. We've decided to legally change our last names back to Dad's. We're not Thompson kids anymore. We want to be Andersons, like we should have been all along. The folder hit the table with this little thud that seemed to echo through the whole room. Legal documents. They'd actually gone through the paperwork to erase my name from theirs. We thought you should know in front of everyone who's supported us over the years, Jake continued. The people who really know us understand why we're making this choice. I looked around the room, and faces that had been sympathetic a few minutes earlier were now closed off, uncomfortable. Some people were nodding slightly, like they agreed. Mrs. Patterson from book club was actually smiling a little, like she'd been waiting for this moment. My sister Carol started to stand up, maybe to say something, but her husband grabbed her arm and pulled her back down. Even my own family wasn't going to defend me. We want you to know we don't hate you, Marcus said, his voice softer now but somehow worse than if he'd just screamed at me. We just think it's healthier for everyone if we're honest about the past and move forward separately. The room was dead silent except for someone's stomach growling and the ice machine cycling on in the corner. 40 people staring at me waiting to see what I'd do. Would I cry? Would I fight back? Would I make a scene and prove everything they just said about me being unstable? I stood up slowly, my legs feeling like jello, and walked over to where my sons were standing by that projector. They both tensed up like they thought I might hit them or start screaming. Instead, I looked at each of them for a long moment, then turned to address the room. Thank you, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. Thank you for this gift, for showing me exactly who you are and exactly where I stand. I picked up my purse from the table where I'd left it next to a piece of that grocery store cake I'd never gotten to eat. Jake, Marcus, I hope your new life as Andersons brings you everything you're looking for. Then I walked out of that community center without looking back, leaving behind 40 people who were probably already pulling out their phones to text about what they'd just witnessed. The drive home was weird, like I was watching someone else's. Hands on the steering wheel of my beat-up Honda Civic, someone else's foot pressing the gas pedal. I kept expecting to feel something. Anger, sadness, devastation. But there was just this strange emptiness, like when you finally take off shoes that have been pinching your feet all day. I got home, changed into my oldest pajamas, and sat on my couch with a cup of tea, staring at the wall until about 2 in the morning. Then I went to bed and slept better than I had in months. Sunday morning came, and that's when the calls started. My phone buzzing every few minutes with texts and voicemails, not from Jake or Marcus, from other people at the party. My sister Carol, Mrs. Henderson, even a few coworkers. I can't believe they did that to you. That was so inappropriate. Are you okay? Do you need anything? Funny how people find their voices after the fact, right? Where were these concerned friends when I was getting torn apart in front of them? But then Monday morning rolled around and my phone started buzzing with different numbers. Jake and Marcus calling and texting like nothing had happened. Mom, we need to talk. Can you call us back? We should probably discuss what happened Saturday. I looked at those messages while drinking my coffee from that same chipped Starbucks mug, watching my sprinklers hit the same sad flower garden, and I realized something had shifted inside me. That emptiness from Saturday night had filled up with something else. Clarity. Update. For 3 weeks now, I've been completely unreachable to my former sons. Every call goes to voicemail. Every text gets ignored. Every email sits unread. They've tried everything, showing up at my work, sending other family members to check on me, even getting their father involved. But here's the thing, they don't understand. They didn't just embarrass me that night, they freed me. What happens when someone realizes they don't actually owe their betrayers anything at all? I stopped answering their calls completely. Not out of spite, not to punish them, but because I finally understood something that took me 50 years to figure out. You don't have to keep people in your life just because you share DNA. The first week was the hardest. They called constantly. Jake even showed up at my work, standing by my Honda in the parking lot of the insurance office like some kind of desperate ex-boyfriend. Mom, come on, we need to talk about this, he said when I walked out at 5:30. You can't just disappear on us. I looked at him, really looked at this grown man who'd helped orchestrate my humiliation 3 weeks earlier. And I felt nothing. No maternal instinct, no urge to fix things, no guilt about his distress. I haven't disappeared, I told him calmly, unlocking my car door. I'm standing right here, but I don't have anything to say to you. That's not fair. We were just trying to be honest about our feelings. In front of 40 people, with a slideshow narrated by your father? That's your definition of honesty? He got flustered then, doing that thing he used to do as a kid when he got caught in a lie, shuffling his feet and looking anywhere but at my face. Look, maybe we could have handled it differently, but the feelings were real. We felt like we needed to make a statement. You made your statement, I said, getting into my car. I heard it loud and clear. That was 2 weeks ago. Since then, they've gotten more desperate. Marcus tried approaching me at the grocery store last Saturday, following me down the cereal aisle like we were in some kind of romantic comedy. Mom, this is ridiculous. We're your sons. You can't just cut us off forever. I kept walking, pushing my cart past the Cheerios and Lucky Charms, not even acknowledging he was there. We love you. We were just trying to help you understand how your choices affected us. That's when I stopped and turned around, right there between the Frosted Flakes and the granola bars. You love me? I asked. You love me so much that you spent months planning a public execution of my character? You love me so much that you legally changed your names to erase any connection to me? That's what love looks like to you? He started to say something, but I held up my hand. You wanted honesty, Marcus? Here's some honesty for you. You're not my sons anymore. You made that choice when you signed those papers. You're Jake Anderson and Marcus Anderson now, remember? So act like it. I finished my shopping, paid for my groceries, and drove home while he stood there in the cereal aisle, looking lost. The really interesting thing has been watching how other people have reacted. My sister Carol keeps calling, trying to play peacemaker. They're young. They don't understand what they did, she keeps saying. Family is family. You have to forgive them eventually. But my coworker Jennifer had a different take when I finally told her the whole story over lunch last week. Good for you, she said, stabbing her Caesar salad with more force than necessary. I'm so tired of people thinking blood relation gives you a free pass to treat someone like garbage. If strangers had done that to you, everyone would tell you to cut them off completely. But because they're your kids, you're supposed to just take it? She was right. I'd spent 26 years making excuses for bad behavior, putting their needs before mine, accepting disrespect because that's what mothers do. But here's what I figured out sitting in my living room these past 3 weeks. Being a mother doesn't mean being a doormat. The calls have gotten more frantic lately. Their father, my ex-husband, actually had the nerve to show up at my house. Yesterday evening, I saw his truck in my driveway through the kitchen window, and I just kept making dinner like he wasn't there. He knocked for maybe 10 minutes before finally leaving. But he left a note stuck in my door, his handwriting on a piece of notebook paper like we're in high school. The boys are really upset. They miss you. Maybe we can all sit down and work this out like adults. I read it once, laughed out loud, and threw it in the trash with my coffee grounds and banana peels. The same man who spent 45 minutes narrating my failures to a room full of people now wants to work things out like adults. The truth is, I'm happier than I've been in years. I wake up every morning without dreading phone calls or guilt, trips or demands on my time and energy. I come home from work and the house stays exactly how I left it. I eat what I want for dinner, watch whatever shows I want, go to bed when I'm tired instead of staying up to manage other people's problems. Last weekend, I drove down to the coast by myself, something I've wanted to do for months but never had the time. I spent 2 days walking on the beach, reading books, eating at little restaurants where nobody knew my story or my failures or my disappointments. I was just a woman on vacation, enjoying her own company. I met this lady named Patricia at a coffee shop near the beach. She was probably about my age, sitting alone with a crossword puzzle and an iced latte. We ended up talking for 3 hours about everything and nothing: books, travel, gardening, life in general. She never asked about my family or why I was traveling alone. She just enjoyed the conversation for what it was. When I was leaving, she said something that stuck with me. You seem really peaceful, like you're comfortable in your own skin. That's rare. Comfortable in my own skin. For the first time in decades, that felt true. My phone is still buzzing with messages from Jake and Marcus. The latest ones have gotten more desperate, more manipulative. Mom, we're sorry if we hurt your feelings. We didn't mean for things to go that far. Can't we just forget about the whole thing and move on? But here's what they don't understand. This isn't about hurt feelings or moving on. This is about respect. This is about recognizing that actions have consequences, even when the people you hurt are supposed to love you unconditionally. They made their choice that night at the community center. They chose public humiliation over private conversation. They chose their father's narrative over any relationship with me. They chose to legally erase my name from their identities. Those were adult decisions made by adult men. And now they get to live with the adult consequences. I've started taking an evening art class at the community college, watercolor painting. It's something I always wanted to try but never had time for between work and dealing with family drama. Turns out I'm not terrible at it. My instructor, this energetic woman named Susan, who's probably in her 60s, says I have a good eye for color and composition. You're a natural, she told me last Thursday while I was working on a landscape piece. Have you ever painted before? No, I said, adding some blue to the sky I was creating. I guess I just never had the space in my life for it until now. Space in my life. That's exactly what I have now. Space to discover who I am when I'm not constantly managing other people's emotions and expectations and disappointments. My neighbor, Mr. Garcia, stopped by yesterday to ask if I wanted the tomatoes from his garden. His wife passed away last year, and he's been dealing with more vegetables than one person can eat. You seem different lately, he said, handing me a bag of the most beautiful tomatoes I've ever seen. Lighter, somehow. I made some changes in my life, I told him. Got rid of some things that weren't serving me anymore. He nodded like he understood exactly what I meant. Sometimes the best thing you can do is subtract instead of add. Subtract instead of add. I've been thinking about that all week. I subtracted the guilt about not being the perfect mother. I subtracted the obligation to maintain relationships with people who don't respect me. I subtracted the belief that I owe anyone access to my life just because we share history. And what I've added is peace, self-respect. Time to figure out what I actually want instead of what everyone else needs from me. The really crazy part is how good I sleep now. For years, I'd lie awake worrying about Jake and Marcus, their jobs, their relationships, their happiness, their problems. Now I go to bed thinking about my watercolor class, or planning weekend trips, or considering whether I want to rearrange my furniture. My problems are my own size now, manageable and mine to solve. Last week, I ran into Marcus's ex-girlfriend Sarah at Target. We'd always gotten along well, and she looked genuinely happy to see me. I heard about what happened at your birthday party, she said quietly, glancing around like someone might overhear us talking. I just wanted you to say I think what they did was terrible. Thank you, I said. That means a lot. For what it's worth, Marcus has been calling me crying about how you won't talk to him. He keeps saying he doesn't understand why you're being so stubborn. I almost laughed at that. Stubborn. Like standing up for yourself is some kind of character flaw. He doesn't understand a lot of things, I said. That's not my problem to fix anymore. Sarah nodded slowly. Good for you. Honestly, good for you. I always thought you were too good to them. They took advantage of how much you cared, took advantage of how much I cared. That hit me right in the chest because it was true. I'd been so afraid of losing them, so desperate to be a good mother, that I'd let them treat me like a convenience instead of a person. But they lost me anyway, didn't they? The minute they decided to humiliate me in front of 40 people, they lost any claim to my maternal devotion. My phone just buzzed again. Another text from Jake. Mom, it's been a month. This has gone on long enough. We need to talk. I read it, and then I deleted it without responding, just like I've done with all the others. Because here's what I've learned in these 4 weeks of silence. I don't need to talk to them. I don't need to explain myself or justify my choices or make them understand why their actions hurt me. I don't need to do anything except live my life in a way that makes me happy. Tonight, I'm going to paint another watercolor, maybe some flowers this time, or a sunset over water. I'm going to make myself a nice dinner with Mr. Garcia's tomatoes. I'm going to watch whatever movie I want without asking anyone else's opinion. And tomorrow, I'm going to wake up in my quiet house, drink coffee from my chipped Starbucks mug, and continue building a life that belongs entirely to me. They can keep calling. They can keep showing up places, trying to force reconciliation. They can keep telling people I'm being unreasonable or stubborn or whatever story makes them feel better about what they did. But I'm done participating in relationships where I'm the only one showing up with love and respect. I'm done being the mother who absorbs everyone else's problems and gets nothing but criticism in return. I'm 50 years old, and for the first time in decades, I'm exactly where I want to be. Free.